It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, November 8th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful Tuesday? We've got current news from around the world, the practical word study, and of course, Provi in the media. All right, everyone, how are you doing today? Yes, Monday is officially over, and Tuesday, we're getting into the week, and I hope you guys are feeling, what's the right word? Like you're just getting into the flow and into the groove. And I hope you guys are enjoying your week so far. And thankful to everyone who's joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. So keep liking and commenting. Want to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. Most importantly, more than anything else, we just want to build the community. We got to make sure that we build the platform for all of us to speak freely, talk about the topics we want to talk about too. And, we can give good feedback, not only just for this podcast, for, just things that are happening within our churches or just anything happening in Providence and life too, right? So I'm super, super happy that we've made it thus far. We are closing in on 700 episodes just right around the corner. So I'm super happy about this one. So I hope that you guys are enjoying this as much as you can. Let other people who speak English know about this podcast that's going on. So this podcast was originally made for people to listen to as they're going to work, on the train, going to campus. It's just something that everyone can enjoy, right? And I hope that all of you guys here today will be able to enjoy it that much too, all right? So Thursday, just around the corner, we got Thursday, and get your questions ready for Q&A Thursday. It's one of the most popular segments every single week, so I hope that you guys enjoy it just as much as I do. I love racking my brain and thinking about these awesome questions you guys keep giving about things that are happening all over your life and whatnot, right? So, some questions already coming through, so if you have any more, go ahead and leave those questions for me. All right, so this is so crazy, guys. The first week of November is done. Can you believe that? Already 1 week is done. We've gone so fast into November. 1 week is done. Like I just felt like Halloween was like yesterday. Like I still see some of the photographs of people's Halloween outfits and stuff like that. But I was like, wow, we're already 1 week in, which means we got about 3 weeks to make sure we get everything we need to get done for this year. And I'm really, really happy that we got this week's word. At least every week's word that gives us the guidance on how we should, or what are the things we should be focusing on each and every week. So for me, I'm starting to settle here in Malaysia. First week was just too crazy. I'm dead serious, guys. That first week was nuts. Like lost luggage, pulled over by the police, asking for a bribe. My car battery died, and then just the other day, I locked my keys in the car. So, I truly, truly believe this week will be a week of blessing. Amen, right? I really believe that all the bad stuff just went away. I went through all the bad stuff in that first week, and now it's time just to enjoy and receive a ton of blessings. So I hope that not only are you guys praying for yourselves, but please pray for me. There's so many things, I don't know what it is. Just my first week here, I was driving and stuff, and I would miss turns on the freeway, and I would have a 20-minute detour. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But either way, I am blessed. I am so blessed, and I'm so thankful to be in this history. And I'm thankful that, especially with this week's message, we're able to know how much God loves us and how passionately He loves us. And this is how passionate we should be loving the Holy Trinity, Jesus, and the man in mission also. Okay? So here's something that I found really interesting. As I'm thinking about, I still have time. I don't have a full-blown mission yet, but there's something I was really thinking about. And, just recently, head leaders have been getting just a title in Scripture to make a sermon, which is, it's like, oh my goodness, that's so crazy. Only a title and only a Scripture. And personally, I think this is very, very healthy for leaders. But if you really, really think about it, right? One of the things we do talk about in Providence, I know it's talked about, this has been talked over several weeks already is how important the word is. It's through the word you know God's heart. It's through the word you know God's thoughts, his mind, his deep shimjung, right? We know everything about God through the words. So the words are the things that transform us. The word is what changes us. It resurrects us. It raptures us. So when we think about how important the word is, like in our heads, we have to think about this. If the word is that big, right? And when you think about head leaders, right? So when I think about head, because I was a head leader too, one of the most important and key roles, more than any other mission or position you have in church, is going to be delivering the word. Like that's going to be the number one thing. Like even when you go to the former faith churches, they spend the entire week trying to come up with a sermon. Of course, for us, a little bit easier because we have a script, right? In most cases, just not until recently. But if we value the word that much, then everything, like one of the things that I think could be dangerous is when all of a sudden we think that managing people is more important than delivering the word. When that's the number one role for the head leader. Like, Sassim talks about that too. The head leader's number one role is delivering the word. Okay? Now, here's the thing. If, it does make sense that we have to take care of people too, but that's not our number one goal. Number one is the word. And I was thinking to myself is like, it does kind of make sense that leaders might take time off to manage someone, but I was also thinking like, no, there's a lot of different things I have. Like for instance, it's not the head leader that's supposed to be the main manager. Of course, it's supposed to be department leaders. They're the main ones taking care of people, hands down, right? It's not the head leaders. Head leaders are taking care of the department leaders, right? So when I think about this, right, what makes people easier to manage? Right? Let me take a sip of my tea. Ooh, that's good tea. So here's the question is, what makes it easier to manage people, to take care of people? And unequivocally, right, it is the word. It is the word that comes first, that kind of seeps into people's hearts, lets them, realize about themselves, lets them understand what they need to be doing. And then they can be properly managed. And I realized even more right now how important it is where, when Sassim says, don't just take care of people, like don't just take care of them. You have to do it with the word. And sometimes, we take that very literally. And we think that means that every time we meet a newcomer, we have to deliver the word. And the answer is no, you don't, right? But, when you realize it's the word, if someone is listening to the word and it just it snaps into their heart like, oh, this is so true. And sometimes people don't have the strength to actually do it, but this is where it becomes something where we're able to manage better, right? People can properly manage and take care of people through the word, right? Everything is done through the word. The focus should actually be on the word first before managing them, which means this is why we want people to come to church. This is why we want people to listen to the word, because the word is God. It's the most powerful thing we have. If we only give our own words, what happens? Well, our own words is only at the level of ourselves. But when we preach God's words, then the power of God goes into these people, changes their hearts, softens their minds, and helps them to change in their life, right? The focus should actually be on the word first before managing them. Right? And this is why the role of the head leader is so big. It doesn't mean the head leader is going to be delivering the word to every individual, to every department. No, they're going to deliver the word on the Sundays, every pre-dawn, every Wednesday as the sole major focus. And I'm going to tell you this too. There's a huge difference from reading the word and from listening to someone preach the word. It's very, very different, right? And I thought to myself, yeah, you know what? It's the word that has to be preached first. Without the word, people cannot change. Without the word, people can't even be managed really well. So I hope that's something that we can realize at a much, much deeper level too. Even when I was talking to some head leaders, it's always like, hey guys, you guys, we have it lucky in Providence because you're never making the sermon. You just basically prepare one day where you have former faith pastors are preparing 3, 4, 5 days just to get a sermon for the Sunday. That's where most of their time is going towards. Right now, it's super easy. Extracting Proverbs, that's not hard. Listening very, very honestly, it's not hard to extract Proverbs from a message that's already there. It's not. It's super easy from what other people have to do. And I think it's something that we may take for granted as people who are listening to the word. So I hope it's something that we can really think about more deeply, and it'll be something that we really need to pray for our leaders to preach the words powerfully and really well. And of course, we're the ones who hold our head leaders accountable, right? If they're not doing it, we have to hold them accountable, right? It's true. Like, it doesn't mean that you call them out in front of everyone, but, one of the things that we do is good feedback. Feedback meaning, like, imagine your head leader keeps missing pre-dawn. Someone's got to talk to the head leader. You know what I mean? And it's not a good sign if you feel that you can't talk to the head leader. If you can't talk to the head leader, that's not a good sign, right? It means that there's not it doesn't mean that you're, like, being able to talk to your leader has nothing to do with how close you are to them. It's got nothing to do with that. It has to do with the culture that is set there. Can people talk to the leader or not? If they can't talk to the leader, of course there is going to be a little bit of fear, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's my head leader. But if the head leader, if the church has very, very good culture, it becomes very, very open, right? And I hope it's something that we can hold our head leaders accountable also. Like, yeah, if things aren't going right, we talk to them. But not saying that, oh, you did this wrong. Not like that. It's more of, hey, how's everything going? And you talk to them about the certain thing that you're concerned about, or whether it's about the word, or whether it's about, like I said, if I was a head leader, I was a head leader. And one of the things that I never, ever was late to or missed was pre-dawn. I think I was late once because of the train. And from that point on, I just started sleeping at church because I never want to be late for pre-dawn, right? So I hope it's something that we can, we can do it in a very classy and respectful way, right? So it's got to be this good relationship where they're not just delivering the word. And, our head leaders are not God, and we should never expect them to be like this perfect person. We shouldn't expect them to be like, Jesus or Sunsteam or whatever it is. We should never expect that. What we should expect is that they are human, they're going to make mistakes, and we're growing up together, right? And we're going to help each other up in all those different things, right? So that is something that I was really thinking about lately, because I was like, man, because head leading is in my mind a lot, right? So I hope that's something that, write a comment below what you guys think about what I just said there too, because I think that's something important that we can think about also. Today's Provi in the Media, very, very interesting article, once again from Massimo Introvigne, and I love this guy. I'm going to be super honest with you guys. This guy is awesome. I love his, because he's in the field that we're talking about here. He has such an expertise on all the differences in media and religions and new, the new NRMs, new religious movements or cults, right? And like I said before, his resume is like impeccable, his resume. Italian sociologist of religions, founder and managing director of the Center for Studies on New Religions, an international network of scholars who study new religious movements. And he's also the author of like some 70 books and more than 100 articles in the field of sociology of religion. Main author of the Encyclopedia of Religions in Italy, and he's a member of the editorial board for the Interdisciplinary Journal of Research on Religion and of the executive board of the University of California Press, Nova Religio. And, he served as a representative on combating racism, xenophobia, and discrimination, with a special focus on discrimination against Christians and members of other religions. And he was in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and he served as chairperson of the Observatory of Religious Liberty, right? And that was instituted by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to monitor problems of religious liberty on a worldwide scale. So this guy is very, very qualified to talk about these types of things. He's been studying it all his life, and I love his articles too. So we are going to get into another one of his articles, and this article is about why spiritual masters are persecuted. That's an interesting topic, right? So kind of get a better idea. You get a little bit introspective of what he's talking about, why spiritual masters are persecuted, or gurus, or whatever you want to call it, right? So very, very interesting piece. I will put that into the description below too. So also, brand new poll that just came out, guys. Brand new poll. And, I wanted, there have been some heavy topics. We talk about mental illness and stuff like that too. But what I really wanted to do is something a little bit more light, something that's very, very easy, because we have been talking about some serious topics. So today, very, very easy is what beverage do you prefer, right? Coffee, tea, juice, water. If you have anything else, go ahead and comment there. But obviously, everyone knows what my favorite beverage is. It is juice. Yeah, you guys are like, whatever. Yeah, so it's coffee. But yeah, already some people that are writing in, that are doing the poll already. I think there's how many people already? Let me just check here. Let's see. Yeah, already 19 people have done the poll, and it looks like the majority is water, which is very good, guys. Very good for you guys. 37% is water. Gosh, coffee's number 3. It's number 1 for me. But either way, it's okay. Not everyone has to like coffee, right? So I hope you guys will go ahead and do that fun poll too. I'd love to talk about that also. This week's last week's Espresso with Sky video is struggling with prayer. Hope you guys really enjoyed that one. It's something that I think that a lot of people are struggling with, coming out of the pandemic, and we really got to get ourselves back into it, right? And to gain that taste for prayer. And once you break that cycle, to break the rhythm, it's hard to get back on it, but we can do it. I know that all of us can. Okay, and that's part 2. So there's part 1 is from the week before. Okay. So let's get the show started with some music from member artists from around the world. And on this awesome Tuesday, we're going to start off with one of our favorites. This is Kiro Black and Julius from Australia with Inside My Head, some good rock music. Then we have Kumachang from Japan with his own version of Who Will Comfort Me, and that's featuring Maki. And last but not least, we have PGY from the Paper Music Associates in Korea with Soulless Glitter.
The dead. Society's full of zombies and I'm fighting for survival. It's just me and the voice inside my head, that's my rival. It's peaceful in my city, but I think I'm going psycho. An upside down world where people look down to their idols. Yeah, my mind space is like a hellscape, but planet Earth's a crazy place. So stay in my own world between reality or insanity. The lines are blurred, and I don't know what's real. Connected, but at the same time disconnected. Convicted in large crowds is when I'm most on my own. Take a peek through the window of my soul. I've kept the fire burning ever since I heard that winter was coming. The coldness of their heart, there's no use running, no escaping. Deep to the bone, it leaves a king shaking in his throne. Yeah, I don't know what's real anymore. Inside my head are these thoughts that bring me down into the wall inside my head. Inside my head, that's my rival. It's peaceful in my city, but I think I'm going psycho. An upside down world where people look down to their idols. Yeah, my mind space is like a hellscape. But planet Earth's a crazy place. So stay in my own world between reality or insanity. The lines are blurred.
誰が主の心を分かって慰めることができるのだろう。あの場所で一人きり10年間の歳月を大きな手が助けてくださった。全世界を愛し救うために使わされたその方は誰も知らなくても大きな力がいつも共にされてどれだけ受けた心のペイン計り知れない数の髪と目塞ぎ込んだ目しまい込んだ手が今動き出す心の時計言葉にならない言葉だけが歌となるその心の中傷つく限り感じた弱これを愛深いの何と呼ぶのか。誰も主を知る人がいないのに誰が主の手を握れるのだろうか。あの場所で一人きり誰の助けもない中顔も体もない大きな手が全世界を愛し救うために使わされたその方を大きな手で助けておられたの。
And that was PGY from PMA in Korea with Soulless Glitter. Before that, Kumachung from Japan with Who Will Comfort Me featuring Maki. And of course, featured artists of the day, that awesome rock song from Kiro Black and Julius from Australia with Inside My Head. All right, so let's get into some news going on around the world. And as brides of this history, we really need to pray for the world. But in order to pray for the world, we need to know what we need to pray for. All right, so what are the top 3 reasons why watch the world news? Number 1, see what we need to report and pray for. 2, see what God is doing. And last but not least, what are the things that comfort God's heart? So let's start off with what is going on with Russia and the Ukraine. It seems Kyiv mayor, it is Klitschko, warns of evacuations if power is lost. Kyiv residents should be prepared to leave the city if there is a total loss of power, its mayor has said. In recent weeks, millions of Ukrainians have intermittently been left without electricity and water as Russian airstrikes target vital infrastructure. Rolling power cuts are also in place to avoid overloads and to allow for repairs. Some 40% of Ukraine's energy system has been damaged or destroyed by Russian attacks on power plants and lines. Another city official has warned that in the case of a total blackout, water supply and sewage would also stop working. The Geneva Conventions, which outlines humanitarian standards for treatment in war, state that attacks should not be carried out against civilian objects. Speaking on Ukrainian television, Mayor Vitaly Klitschko branded Russia's targeting of infrastructure as terrorism and genocide. Russian President Vladimir Putin doesn't need us Ukrainians, he needs territory. He needs Ukraine without us, the former heavyweight boxer said. In winter in Kyiv, the average temperature is below freezing and drops even further at night. Klitschko said that while authorities are doing everything to keep the lights on and water flowing, he was ensuring preparations were in place for different scenarios. Kyiv's 3 million residents should make arrangements to stay with friends or relatives who live in the suburbs who still have water and power so that they have a plan in the worst case scenario if the supply to Kyiv is lost. He added that the authorities were stocking up on fuel, food, and water, and residents should do the same. At least 1,000 heating shelters are being set up across the city where people will be able to get warm in an emergency. Kyiv's director of security, Roman Kachuk, echoed the mayor's comments in a post on messaging app Telegram. He stressed that city officials were making plans, but that there are no reasons to talk about the evacuation at the moment. Residents in Kyiv have said that they know that power could be lost and supplies could become scarce. Dimitro, a 30-year-old father of 2, told the BBC he had already made plans to leave Kyiv in case things got worse. He has stocked up on fuel, bought generators, and will move his family to his grandparents' home on the outskirts of Kyiv. He said he began making the plans after authorities announced that they were going to open heating points 2 weeks ago. And he also said, I understood from that there will eventually be no electricity, he added. In other news over there in the Ukraine, blackouts in Kherson and Strategic Dam are hit. Russian-installed authorities have reported power and water loss in occupied Kherson, blaming a Ukrainian strike on nearby power lines and a key dam. They urged residents to remain calm and said they would quickly resolve the situation. However, the head of the Ukrainian regional administration blamed Russia for the power outage. Some of the power outage was caused by damage to the nearby hydroelectric Kakhovka Dam after it was hit by a missile, according to Russian media. However, Ukraine has not commented on the reports, which cannot be independently verified. In recent weeks, Ukraine has warned that Russian forces intend to blow up the dam, causing devastating flooding for hundreds of thousands of people in the surrounding area. Kherson, which lies downriver of the dam, fell to Russia within the first days of the war, but as Ukrainian forces advanced, they have their sights set on retaking it. Also, heavy losses in Donetsk. Russia is suffering heavy losses as it carries out fierce attacks in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. President Zelensky has said in his nightly television address. The Insider, a Russian-focused independent media outlet, reported that in 4 days, 300 members of a brigade of Russian Marines were killed, wounded, or missing in the Pavlivka area. Posts on pro-Russian Telegram channels have been drawing attention to the brigade's reportedly dire situation. Mr. Zelensky also warned that Ukraine believes Russia is concentrating forces and means for a possible repetition of mass attacks on our infrastructure energy in the first instance. So that is kind of what is going on over there in the Ukraine. Let's go over to Latin America. We'll go to Peru. Police clashed with protesters in the capital, Lima. Riot police used tear gas to disperse protesters in Peru's capital, Lima, as thousands of people took part in anti-government marches across the country. Demonstrators want embattled President Pedro Castillo to resign over allegations of corruption. The left-wing leader, who unexpectedly won power last year, is a subject of 6 criminal investigations but denies any wrongdoing. Peru faces a number of economic issues, including spiraling living costs. The country was disproportionately badly hit by COVID-19, and poverty levels are forecast to remain above pre-pandemic levels for the next 2 years, according to the World Bank. Mr. Castillo won the presidency, promising to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor, but a Congress dominated by opposition lawmakers has blocked many of his plans. One of Saturday's protesters told the Reuters news agency she was taking part for the sake of her children and grandchildren because this government is becoming hell. And another told the AFP news agency that the country was on the edge of the precipice. Economically, everything has stagnated. No injuries were reported immediately after police fired tear gas canisters in Lima in an effort to stop demonstrators from reaching government buildings, and protests were also reported in a handful of other Peruvian cities, while groups of Mr. Castillo's supporters organized a march of their own in a Lima square. Following his 2021 victory in a highly polarized vote, Castillo has survived 2 attempts to oust him from his job through impeachment. The 53-year-old was also the subject of a constitutional complaint last month from the Attorney General, who accused Castillo and his family members of being behind a criminal organization. The former school teacher and strike leader insisted he and his relatives had committed no offenses, complaining that his rivals were attempting to unseat him. And on Saturday, Castillo tweeted a defiant message aimed at the usual enemies who he blamed for false accusations, vowing to continue to fight to free people from inequality. Peru has seen a number of presidents ousted from office in years. In 2020, it had 3 heads of state in the space of 5 days. Right, so that is what's going on over there in Peru. So prayers go out to there just to make sure that, we don't know who's right. Right, we don't know who's right. We're just listening to what the news is saying, but we have to be those that make sure that God takes care and pays everyone according to what they have done. All right. Last but not least, let's get into Africa, in Tanzania. Right? So Tanzanian precision airplane crashes into Lake Victoria. A Tanzanian passenger plane has crashed into Lake Victoria as it attempted to land in the lakeside town of Bukoba, killing at least 19 people. Of the 43 people on board, there were 24 survivors, according to operator Precision Air. The 2 pilots initially survived and managed to speak to local officials from the cockpit, but the Prime Minister says they may have since died. The plane crashed near the shore at the end of the Bukoba airport runway, and rescuers were able to wade through the water to bring some of those still inside the plane to safety. The tragedy, which occurred around 8:50 a.m. local time, has been blamed on bad weather. Emergency workers have used ropes to pull the ATR-42 aircraft even closer to the shore, and some of the plane's body is now above the water. Immediately after the crash, the plane was almost completely submerged, with only the brown and green tail fin visible. Richard Komba, a survivor of the crash, told the BBC that when the plane was about to land, the weather had deteriorated, forcing the pilot to reroute the aircraft. He said one cabin crew member was struggling to open the aircraft's door, but he was eventually able to be freed. And he said when they got out, there was no boats. It took quite a long time to get rescued, but the boat that came was not that good. It was a canoe. And he said the survivors were scared because of the number of people trying to fit in the one vessel, but he said other rescue boats arrived minutes later. Tanzania's Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa said the rescued passengers were in hospital, were not seriously injured, but they are shocked and worried. And the airport has been closed until further notice, and President Samia Suluhu Hassan has expressed her condolences to those affected and called for calm as a rescue operation continues. The plane was flying from Dar es Salaam to Bukoba via Mwanza. And Precision Air is Tanzania's largest private airline and is partly owned by Kenya Airlines. And it was founded in 1993 and operates domestic and regional flights. So yeah, that's pretty crazy that there's a plane crash too in Africa. Just a lot of things going on in the world, and it may seem like things are getting worse and worse, but we just have to realize and recognize that some of this stuff is naturally happening every year anyways, right? And it just makes everything seem worse because of the pandemic and the wars and things going on too. So let's make sure that we keep all these people in our prayers. Right, so that's the world news there. Let's go into some sporting news. I'll start with some soccer. What happened over the last couple of days? We have Arsenal beating Chelsea 1-0. Aston Villa defeats Manchester United 3-1. Liverpool beats Tottenham 2-1. And Man City defeats Fulham 2-1. In Spain, Barcelona defeats Almeria 2-0. And in the Italian league, Juventus defeats Internazionale 2-0. PSG defeats Lorient 2-1 in the France League, and in the German Bundesliga, Bayern Munich defeats Hertha Berlin 3-2. All right, so let's get into the NBA news. Big loss here. Once again, it is the Cleveland Cavaliers defeating the LA Lakers 114-100. Donovan Mitchell with 33 points. LeBron James with 27 points and 7 rebounds. Cleveland Cavaliers, they are now 9-1 this season, so they are like the second best team in the league. They're doing amazing. And LeBron James, which his old team was Cleveland, they are, I believe, something like 2-7, so they're not doing very well at all. Toronto Raptors, their team is doing well. They're 6-3 right now, and they defeated the Chicago Bulls 113-104. Fred VanVleet with 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 11 assists. And Memphis Grizzlies defeat the Washington Wizards 103-97. And in NFL news, NFL just had their, NFL Sundays when they play almost all their games. The LA Chargers defeat the Atlanta Falcons 20-17. The last play of the game was crazy. It was a double fumble. As crazy as that sounds. And then the Miami Dolphins defeat the Chicago Bears 35-32. Tyreek Hill, 7 receptions for 143 yards and 1 TD. The Cincinnati Bengals just crushed the Carolina Panthers 42-21. Joe Mixon with 22 carries, 153 yards, 4 TDs on the ground, and 1 in the air. So he had 5 TDs on the day. Detroit Lions upsetting the Green Bay Packers 15-9. New England Patriots just destroyed the Indianapolis Colts 26-3. The New York Jets, upset alert, defeated the Buffalo Bills 20-17. The Minnesota Vikings defeat the Washington Commanders 20-17. Justin Jefferson, 7 receptions, 115 yards, 1 TD. Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm not sure what's happening with the Las Vegas Raiders, but they lost again 27-20. To the Jacksonville Jaguars, Travis Etienne with 28 rushes, 109 yards, and 2 TDs. Seattle also, they're just doing amazing. They're 5-3 right now, and they defeated the Arizona Cardinals 31-21. Tampa Bay Bucks defeat the LA Rams 16-13, which means they break their 3-game losing streak. Tom Brady, 280 yards with 1 TD, and he becomes the first player ever in NFL history to have 100,000 passing yards. So big congratulations to him at the age of 43, I think. Kansas City, they defeat the Tennessee Titans in overtime, 20-17. Patrick Mahomes, 446 yards passing with 1 TD. Derrick Henry with 17 rushes for 115 yards and 2 TDs. All right, so there it is, guys. That is the top 3 news in sports and in world news. Hope you guys really enjoyed that, but you know what that means. It is the golden time. And yes, it is the golden time, a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. Hope all of you guys are looking forward to giving glory to God and the Holy Spirit. So, what are we going to praise and worship today? We're going to start off with an oldie but a goodie, Never Changing Heart for the Lord, and then the acoustic version of Soar, and then we'll break things down with Tremendous Grace. So, as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
When I first met the Lord, in my heart I knew Just as the Bible promised, the day came, and God fulfilled His will for the earth. Above a warm, you know, our spirits went soaring up with the Lord. We flew up to that city of gold. Now let us soar up, flying higher, acting on His word with our bodies here, overcoming ourselves, ruling over the dark. We have rapture, let's testify. We'll make providence shine, and our spirits will help with the strength of the rapture. As we make history, we'll see the Lord is smiling. Now we will soar up higher and higher, rising up on our powerful wings, knowing that we fulfilled heaven's will for us. Raptured brides, let us live this life of thanksgiving and love. Now let us soar up, flying higher, acting on His word with our bodies here, overcoming ourselves, ruling over the dark. We have rapture, let's testify. We'll make providence shine, and our spirits will help with the strength of the rapture. As we make history, we'll see the Lord is smiling. Now let us soar up, flying higher, acting on His word with our bodies here, overcoming ourselves, ruling over the dark. We have rapture, let's testify. We'll make providence shine, and our spirits will help with the strength of the rapture. Yes, we will make history. Heaven is open. We have rapture, so let's seize this moment and make ourselves. Let's awaken the world to this new history, so that they will not miss this chance. Like the engine of love, time is flowing away. Our Lord urges us onward. Let's rapture up even more, soaring higher. Let's rapture up even more. Let's rapture up even more. Let's rapture up even more, soaring higher. We're on the path of God's immense grace. We're on the path of God's great blessing. The Lord's word paved the way that led us here. Truly, we give thanks.
And that was Tremendous Grace. What a great song. I hope you guys are really enjoying that one too. I would like to know, what is your favorite song out of what is your favorite praise song out of the ones that Pastor Joan has made? Like, that's something that'd be quite interesting to figure out. Which one is the one that you guys like the best? Like, I like this one. I also like I Have Only God. I really, really like that one too. What Faith has given, well, you know what? They're all good, but I think for me, I Have Only God is my favorite ones right now at this moment, with the ones that came out in English. So I would say that's my favorite. I'm not sure what you guys are, what your favorite one is, but go ahead, write in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you guys think out of Pastor Joan's newer songs, which one you like the best. Before that was the acoustic version of Soar and Never Changing Heart for the Lord. All right. So now that our hearts are made, prepared, and ready through the time of praise and worship, let's get into today's practical word study. And of course, every single week we get the words, and a lot of times we just kind of take those words and we leave it there. Like, we just leave it as the words. And we only kind of remember what the word is about when it's time for us. When someone says, "Oh, what'd you think of the word?" And then you start thinking about it. Like, how'd you put the word into practice? Then you start thinking about it. And a lot of times, people will think that, they don't feel God anymore, and they don't think that God is actually working in their life. And it's not because God isn't. It's mainly because people don't really do anything with the word anyways. Right? So let's get into, I'm going to pick about 3 or 4 things from the word that I think that could be things that we can do to make it much more practical for us. Okay? So the very first part that I liked was when God was saying that prayer is work, and it's the same as working on something. So even though we're not literally doing it, we're working with our lips. We're calling out to God. And it's very, very similar to you asking your dad to do something for you. Like, you yourself are not going to buy it. You're not going to work to make the money. But if you just ask your dad, then with your lips, you're working so that your dad will do something for you. You know what I mean? So prayers work. You have to be working on something, right? In order for you to be, in order for something to get done, you need to work on it. So the question here is, what are you working on right now? Right? What is the work of prayer that you're doing right now? Like, for instance, let me give you an example is, what about finance? So if someone's really going to start working on finance through prayer, through your lips, calling out to God, then you really need to pray about it. Right? And this is one of the things that happens is when God says, let's pray about it, we usually only pray about it when we're in the desperate mode, like, oh God, please, I'm struggling right now. But then they don't pray after that, right? Or they don't set a condition leading towards that. And then they wonder why God's not helping them. So what are you praying for? So the example I gave is finance. And if anything else, write it down. What about your finances do you need? I had this amazing conversation with another member, a member over here in Malaysia, and we were just talking about all the times God just provided. We prayed even for a certain number, we got it, and we're able to support and get all the things that we needed, right? So when I was thinking about this, like, oh, that makes so much sense kind of thing, right? So the question is, what are you praying for? Write it down, write in detail. Right? Don't just write down, I need 10,000 or I need this much money. I need this much. No, write it down in detail. Make sure God knows, right? Even to the smallest things, write it down and take it with you into prayer, right? So here's the first thing is, if you really want to work on something, you got to write it down, and you're reminding yourself, or, I know some people that do this, and I think it's a very, very smart thing to do, is they have a whiteboard. Like a large whiteboard in front of them when they pray, and they see all the people and the things they really need to pray for, and they start praying for them, right? And this is when you're reminded every single time you pray that I gotta pray for this one thing. And and if you start writing this one thing you want to work on, so let's just say that think about it like this. Imagine you need to make $100,000 to buy a car, like a Mercedes-Benz. Let's just say that's the car you want, right? That's the one you want. So you need to save up money. So what's going to happen is every hour you work is building you money towards saving the $100,000. Now, here's the thing. In the same way, prayer too is, if you pray once, you may only fulfill like 1% of the condition, which means you'll still need 100 more prayers in order for you to fulfill that condition, right? So in order for us to start praying for some situation that we really need, something that we really, really want, right? The work. Prayer is work. So the question is, what are you working on? Are you working on something right now that you need God to help you out with, right? Like I said, the example is, for me, is finances. Then how are you praying for it? What do you need finances in? How is he going to help you in this area? Make sure God knows in detail, even to the smallest thing. Write it down. Take it with you into prayer, right? Take it with you into prayer. right? And that would be my first thing is let's find something to work on through prayer. What's that thing you really need? What's the thing you really want right now? Write it down and start working, right? You may not be working physically with your hands, but you work in spirit, right? So there's the first practical thing I do is find something you really want to start working on. Second point I really liked was about a lot of people get distracted. They lose focus. They don't pray really well, right? And I think this is kind of a hard thing to do because there are so many things in this world that can distract us. And sometimes people need a better place to pray. You know, if you pray in a place where there's lots of noise, it's not very good. It's better to put in like noise canceling earphones, or put on some music with noise canceling earphones. Calm music that will help you so that you get into the zone of prayer. But I would have to say this, guys: the number one distraction that people have nowadays is their phones. Like, that's the number one thing by far. It's the phones that distract people from praying. And if that's the case, I would say that you should pray with no phones. Like, that is getting rid of your number one distraction, is no phones, right? Just bring in a timer or a clock, set it on your watch, whatever it is, and just, or even if you have to bring your phone in, put your phone on airplane mode, right? Like, turn off the Wi-Fi, everything else, put on airplane mode, just put on a timer, and just bask in that time of being together with God, right? But getting that distraction away is a very important thing, and I think a lot of people should get rid of their phones. Not rid of them, but for that moment, get rid of their phones, right? The third thing I really liked, third thing that I thought about was your prayer has to reach the climax of earnestness. Like, it has to reach that top point of earnestness. And we might be thinking, well, how do I reach that? Like, do I just I'm trying to be more earnest? But the answer was in the messages. If you want to reach the climax of earnestness, share stories. Share stories. Tell God what is happening in your life. Just like a wife would come home and tell their husband what happened at work that day, what made them sad, what makes them angry, what makes them feel these ways, right? Then, what happens is we're saying, like, this wife is just expressing everything that they just went through, and their husband's going to listen and really support them, right? And in the same way too, if we just say, God, I need this, God, I need this, God, I need this, God, I need this, oh, God, please help this, God, please, no. Tell your stories. God, I was just going through this today. Like, if this was yesterday, my prayer is like, God, another problem this week in Malaysia. My first week is all problems, God. I locked the keys in the car. I had to wait over an hour. Oh, I smelt after playing volleyball. God, what am I doing? What's wrong with me, right? And I'm just telling the story of what I just went through. And I'm like, God, I know you saw this. You're probably laughing at me right now, but gosh, I'm so frustrated. And then what happens is the earnestness comes out, because that's a real situation that I'm going through. It's real. The earnestness comes out. I'm like, God, please help me, kind of thing. And, like, in my head, God's like going, well, it's not, God's like, well, stop being stupid. He's like, why would you lock in the car? And, I start to realize more about myself, right? Why is it in this last week it's been so crazy? Well, it started off with the luggage, right? And one by one, things were toppling over. Like, oh, I got to get more clothes, and my mind is in like 5 different places. I keep missing the turns to finding directions in Malaysia. So many things are happening, and it's just piling on top of each other. Where I'm holding a phone, the police pull me over, I leave the light. There's just so many things, and it's taking me. It's taking its toll on my mind, on my mentality, right? But when I come to God and I tell him all these things, it's really refreshing in my heart. And I reach the point of earnestness. God, this is what I really, really, really want. I'm struggling, but I need this, God. And I have this time I could just sit there and earnestness doesn't mean like, doesn't mean that. I'm just being super earnest, like, God, I don't know what to do next. I am struggling right now, going through a mess at the moment. And the earnestness comes out, and you can feel it in your heart. Like, when you feel like the tightness in your heart, you're just like, God. And you feel like there's a pit at the bottom of your stomach, and you just don't know what to do, and you feel helpless, right? And when you share your stories, whether it's a joyful story or a sad story or an angry story, whatever it is, this is where we begin to reach the climax of earnestness, which for myself, I would actually have to say, once again, write it down. Write the stuff you went through during the day. We forget it easily, right? But you write it down and say, God, what's going on? God, why did this happen? God, why did this happen? God, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Kind of thing, right? We're kind of just sitting there the whole time. Why did this happen? Kind of thing. And this is when, that was the answer. Share your stories and you'll reach the climax, the peak of earnestness. Okay? And I would say the last thing that I really got from the message, and I think we can make it really practical, is remember, the answer comes at the end, but what Sunseem said was you need to listen. And I would say, after your prayer is done, don't just end the prayer. Spend some time in silence after your prayer and listen for what God wants to say. You can even set a timer. Set a timer for like 2-3 minutes in silence where you sit there saying, God, okay, help me. How can I do better? And you'll get the inspirations in your heart. Right? So those are probably the 4 things that I would do. Like, prayer is work. Find something to work on. If prayer is work and it helps you to get something, then start working on something. Write it down. Write it in detail. Right? Bring it in with you in prayer. The second thing is make sure you have focus, which means like the biggest distraction we have is our phones. Take that phone out of your presence. Right? Don't let it ring. Put it on airplane mode. Turn off the Wi-Fi. Make sure there's no distractions. Just put on a timer. The third thing is share your stories to reach that climax, that peak of earnestness. And last but not least, I would say is listen. What is God saying to you? What is he really, really saying to you? Spend some time in silence after your prayer is done and listen for what God wants to say to you through your heart. Okay? So those are kind of the 4 things that I would those 4 things that I was thinking about when it came to putting the words into, make it practical in our everyday life. All right? So there it is, guys. That is the word study for today, the practical word study. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. And it's something that will help you guys out putting the words into action this week. All right. So let's get into the song of choice for today on this Japanese Tuesday. And I just searched on the internet because there's a lot of people that are commenting about these anime songs that were so amazing, right? And I don't know what this song is. I don't watch animation. I don't watch any anime. So I have no idea what anime this is for. I just searched on YouTube, best Japanese songs from anime. And I found this one song from AAA called Wake Up. If you guys know what anime it's from, just go ahead and write in the comments below. So everyone, this is on this Japanese Tuesday. This is AAA with Wake Up.
Say 明日も明後日もあ
And that was AAA with the song Wake Up. I'm not sure which anime it's from. Please write in the comments below which anime that song is from. But great song. Hope you guys enjoyed that. All right. So let's get into the last section for today. And a lot of us look forward to this section, which is Provi in the media. And we look at some of these articles that are out there that kind of show what is happening in the world when it comes to media and cults or new religious movements. And this is another article from Massimo Introvigne. And he is someone that has studied like Unification Church, Providence, a bunch of different places, and sees what the media is doing. And he does talks for some churches too, but he is not a member. He is definitely not a member, but he's someone that really, I think that we can say that he's an expert in his field. So this is another article that he wrote, and it's called In Defense of the Gurus, Why Spiritual Masters Are Persecuted. So this is a very, very interesting article. And I hope that it helps us, it kind of opens our minds to what the world and how the world is redefining certain words that are really not that bad. But either way, let's get into this, okay? Let's get into In Defense of the Gurus, Why Spiritual Masters Are Persecuted. This is from Massimo Introvigne, and this is from October 12th in this year. So it's very, very recent, okay? So guru has become a derogatory word in a world that does not understand what a spiritual master is, as the Taiji Men case demonstrates. So for reasons I and other scholars have discussed elsewhere, France has a particularly aggressive and government-sponsored system to fight against cults, called in French, sects. One of its most bizarre features is the use of the word guru as if it was a synonym for a criminal religious leader brainwashing and exploiting his or her followers for money, sex, and power. This use is now common in French language media, but is, if you would pardon my French, idiotic. Not only is guru used outside the original context of spiritual masters in the tradition of the Indian religions, but the meaning of the word is totally misunderstood. Guru is a word used in the Indian tradition to indicate the best of all human beings. It is an ancient Sanskrit term with a variety of etymologies, which are complementary rather than alternative. A guru is, first of all, a dispeller of ignorance. So the word guru, gu means ignorance, and ru means one who dispels. A guru is one who has received a special call from the divine and calls others to enlightenment. From the Sanskrit root giri, one who calls, guru also means one who has weight. Figuratively, but also physically, hence the representations of the Buddha as a fat man and the popular Indian legend that a guru on a scale has a weight much higher than an ordinary man or woman with similar features. So in his recent book, Global Tantra, Julian Strube tells the extraordinary story of how the early leaders of the Theosophical Society, who originally shared the prejudices against Tantrism of some rationalist Hindu reformers, were taught by their Bengali members that it is impossible to understand the Tantra from books. You need a living guru, and the most authoritative of them would firmly refuse to put their secret tantric teachings in writing. That to be enlightened, you need a guru is already mentioned in the most ancient among the Hindu sacred texts, the Vedas. But it is in the later Vedas, the Upanishads, that the role of the guru becomes central, and this teaching is present in all the different Hindu schools. We are taught that even the gods need a guru. The ancient Vishnu Smriti claims that we have three parents, father, mother, and guru. By honoring the father, we gain the earthly world. By honoring the mother, we gain the world of the gods. By paying strict obedience to the guru, we gain the world of ultimate reality. Strict obedience in the early Hindu texts meant that we should serve the guru by providing him with money, personal services, and firewood for several years before he or she starts teaching us. In the Burhan Naradiya Purana, we read that once we have submitted to a guru, it does not even make sense to challenge one of his or her teachings as not true, since there is no truth higher than the guru. The great 17th century Hindu philosopher Samarth Ramdas wrote in his masterpiece Das Bodha that he who regards God as superior to the guru is a fool. Before the greatness of the guru, the greatness of God is as nothing. So surely these are peculiarities of the Hindu tradition non-Hindus may regard as exaggerations, but there are parallels elsewhere. In the spiritual exercises by Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Catholic religious order of the Jesuits, of which the present Pope is a member, we read the famous sentence that the white that I see I would believe to be black, if so taught by the Catholic Church's hierarchy. Obviously, the obedience to the spiritual master includes the risk of abuse. However, charges of abuse should be evaluated within the context of the religious tradition. Gurus who kill or rape their followers may not hide under pretext of religious freedom. On the other hand, being a guru or establishing with the disciples a special relationship of trust and obedience is not illegal. It should not be evaluated through individualist and rationalist standards by media or even by secular courts of law who do not understand the century-old religious principle of surrendering a great part of the discipline's liberty to a spiritual master. Indeed, as we heard in this and previous webinars, freedom of religion or belief is at risk when spiritual teachers are regarded with suspect and malevolence simply because they are teachers. And when politicians and bureaucrats try to break the master-disciple relationship simply because they don't understand it, or perhaps because the only aspect of it they understand is that it creates a way of living and thinking different from the one they want to impose to everybody. A textbook example of this malevolence is the attempt by prosecutor Ho Kwan Jen and others starting in 1996 to break the relationship between Shi Fu, or the Grand Master, and DZ, disciples of Tai Chi men. It is also an example of how attempts, while causing a considerable amount of unnecessary suffering, in most cases fail. Authentic spiritual masters can be put in jail, harassed, persecuted, but their disciples would not leave them. If anything, the persecution made the bond between Shifu and Dizzy, or the disciples of Taiji men, even stronger. However, this is not a reason to tolerate ill-founded campaigns of harassment, including through taxes. Spiritual teachers should be honored, understood, and protected from persecution. This is where World Teachers' Day meets freedom of religion or belief. And that is the article. So it's it's a short article, but it's very interesting because a lot of times these spiritual leaders are misunderstood, or you might have a couple, like very few of them might be very corrupt, right? And they'll take control for money, sex, or whatever it is. But then what happens is the government and the people will look at this in a different way and say, wait, what's going on here? And they see that these spiritual masters are controlling these people. And they'll say, this is a bad thing. However, what we need to realize is we have to understand it in context. This is what Massimo's saying here, right? We need to understand it in context, right? So, like the concept of a guru has been around for centuries, right? For even thousands of years. And the one thing we need to understand here is when there is a spiritual master, there is going to be obedience to the spiritual master. And yes, there's going to be risk of abuse like that we've seen in the world. However, like Massimo was saying, is charges of abuse should be evaluated within the context of the religious tradition, right? So of course, if you are a guru and you kill and rape your followers, of course you can't sit there and say that, oh my gosh, this is religious freedom. No, you can't do that, obviously, right? But on the other hand, there are the real spiritual masters, the ones that do it by action, right? The ones that are teaching them, people become obedient to them. And being a guru or establishing yourself as a guru with your disciples, that is a special relationship of trust and obedience that has been around for millennia. It's not illegal to do this either. And it shouldn't be evaluated through individualist and rationalist standards by media. That's how it should not be evaluated, this relationship between the guru and the disciple. Actually, what Massimo says even is it shouldn't even be evaluated. It shouldn't even be evaluated by secular courts of law who don't understand the century-old religious principle of surrendering a great part of the disciple's liberty to a spiritual master. There's not any different than people in church who surrender a great part of their liberty to Jesus. It's not any different than that. That's what we do, right? We went to Buddha, to the mother, to Allah, right? People are surrendering a great part of their liberty to this spiritual master. And this is something that can't be taken into context, or it can't even be judged by a secular court, an individual, or a standard of media. And we have to understand is that if they start to do this in a regular court of law, and this is what's happening today, then freedom of religion or freedom of belief is at risk, right? Especially when, as Massimo said, when spiritual teachers are regarded with suspect and malevolence simply because they are teachers. And this is when politicians get into it. Bureaucrats try to break the master-disciple relationship just because they don't understand, or perhaps because the only aspect of it they understand is that it creates a way of living or thinking that's different from, than the ones the government is trying to impose on people. Like, it's kind of like what happens in America if they're trying to break the Christian value, right? Through the government. Like, we should follow the government, not religion, kind of thing. And we have to realize this is kind of what's happening when it comes to what's happening in the world today is just that public image, the public view from non-religious, non-spiritual people when they see things like Providence, when they see other religions that they don't have any understanding of. And this is when you'll see a lot of these spiritual leaders that are like he says here, it says, there's so much unnecessary suffering. Authentic spiritual masters can be put in jail, harassed, persecuted, but disciples would not leave them. If anything, it makes them stronger, right? And you can see that even now, if you were looking at our situation too, just because Sunstream's going through all these things, it doesn't break that special relationship, right? It doesn't break it. Just as, imagine if people were living at the time of any great leader like Buddha, Gandhi, and Jesus too, when they break that when the government or someone comes in to kill him or to break the relationship, did that mean all of a sudden there's no more Christians left after Jesus died? And the answer is no. Because the spiritual master is there, people gave up a lot of their liberty just to form that special relationship. And this is what allowed, because of that, when we see those things happen in any, when you see any spiritual master, this is kind of that public image and view that people have, but they don't realize they're coming off from a different context. And they're just kind of labeling and putting an image onto it just because of what they hear and what they see. So I really hope that we can learn a lot more. Like, some of these articles are great. I hope that you can learn about this even more. And, if you guys have any articles or anything that you guys have learned, you guys can go ahead, pop it in the DM so I can take a look at it too, and I can maybe use it for another Provi in the Media interview also. Okay, and that was In Defense of the Gurus, Why Spiritual Masters Are Persecuted. And there's a great column for us to think about our situation right now also. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Provi in the Media. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. Write a comment below if there's anything that you got from this. If not, that's fine too. But would love to hear your comments or what you guys thought about it too. All right. So there it is, guys. That is the end of today's podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Have an amazing and awesome Tuesday. And we will see you guys tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like